I see Mace.
Okay, so I should be able to function things then.
Okay, so you should be able to control the screen. So I'm going to work on streaming stuff over here, and let me know if you have any questions.
No, I did. One.
Hey, guess what? You see me as a square and as a knife. That's all you can see from me.
Square knife.
Yeah, I'm a square and a floating knife. That's all you can see because my person messed my avatar. And since I said I don't want to do my own avatar, now Cotton makes my avatar.
Okay.
Oh, that sound is driving me up the wall.
Do they ever stop?
Got worse today.
Or are they
Well,
working 24/7?
So they were supposed to have stopped already, but then I arrived at my house last night to discover that the entire water drainage trench that they had put in is like a complete water flood. So obviously something went wrong. And this morning they were bucketing water out of the ditch for the water. So my guess is they're effectively redoing all of the work they did before. So this wasn't supposed to be scheduled. And yet, I basically have my entire front yard just like completely drowned in water because of what I assume is a sewage tank septic thing. So right now, what you're hearing is a concrete saw.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. It's
Okay, let me just welcome everyone. Give people a little orientation to what we're doing here. So, hi everybody. Welcome to BridgeMakers Civil Discourse Part 2.
Good morning.
Woo! You can use emojis to participate today. And also, Benya will be calling on you at certain times. So, everybody in the world, so glad you're here. We are live streaming this both to Discord and YouTube. So just be aware of that. There are no name tags being shown, and the request is to no video recordings, but you may take pictures if name tags are off. And yeah, Venya and I are both having all kinds of, especially extra level technical difficulties in our respective spaces. So thank you for your patience as we navigate some bizarre kind of anomalies of password protections and glitches. Thank you also for your patience. The instance was started directly on the hour instead of 15 minutes early as I had planned. That's literally how many minutes plus give maybe another half hour onto that I have been wrestling with the tech. So it's amazing we got in here on time. Who's excited to learn about civil discourse today? Emojis or happy shouting, all welcome.
So sweet.
Civil discourse, yay! Tiny Cake is dancing.
It's a little happy today, a little hyper.
I can tell, yeah.
Mace, I'm just casually gonna sit on your lap now. You have to endure that. I'm sorry.
So just also keeping in mind that this is a multi-level audience. So we have professionals tuning in, and we have also new young baby community builders who are kind of probably scared of something like civil discourse. This could feel like really overwhelming. So making sure that we're all bridging for different levels of customization or people who are accustomed to conflict, and trying to be representative of all of those perspectives as we go. That's part of civil discourse. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Venya. We're going to do part 1 of this event in here, and then the second part, we're going to go to a different world where we're going to maybe watch a little bit of live stream clips of our street epistemology events together and talk about that. Please put yourself on orange if you haven't already. If you do have anybody joining our instances that are not familiar with this event, please take them outside the theater far away from audio here to let them know what's going on. Hi, Voldstar. Nice to see you. So, yeah, okay. I think those are the main pieces. Thank you for being here, Venya. We're so glad you're here, and we'll let you keep going.
Not sure why that keeps changing.
Yeah, you have to be pretty careful, otherwise it'll click through. If you need me to do the clicking, I will do that for you. This is partly why it's very hard for people to navigate this screen, because basically if you sneeze, it'll go 10 forward.
Yeah, it's not too terribly responsive for me right now.
Okay. You want me to do it?
Bless you.
As long as we can get to slide 37 again, that would be helpful. I don't know why it just randomly jumped back to slide 11.
Yeah. It's gonna be a little weird. I wish I could.
Slide 37 is the start of the session.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So, hello everyone. We have new and we have returning people, which is wonderful. Very, very great to see. I would like, because I'm seeing a lot of new faces, I'm going to ask the reverse. Who has attended the introduction session to this that was done in December? Are we all new faces? Looks like we might be. Okay.
I think Armani was here for the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yay. Welcome back, Armani. Can I put you on the spot just very, very briefly? Can I ask you what you thought of the prior course and what was the one thing that you got out of it last month as a nice way to introduce for all of our other new classmates what this course is? Would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna think about it some more. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta think about it a little bit. It'll take about 10 seconds, but I'm really thinking about how it's a process, and some of the pieces may or may not be always familiar, but that's okay. I think that's the main thing, is to give space to what you don't know as much as you do what you know, when it comes to discourse, and that there are different levels of facilitation that all add up in the process.
Yes. So, thank you so much. It's a really, really tacit summation of what it means to be a deliberative facilitator. So, everyone else, for facilitation purposes, what kinds of experiences have y'all had in facilitating discussions in your own spaces? Do we have a few examples someone wants to share?
I can go if nobody else has anything.
Sure.
So recently, or I guess in the last few months, we had somebody who left our community out of just a fear of not being taken care of, et cetera, and a sense that they might get attacked if they stayed in our community. And they circled back around and showed up at just an impromptu world testing event. And in that process, the moderator who had actually put a boundary on them was also present. And so there was a conversation between them that was about the conflict that had gone down. And there were moments where I was jumping in to kind of buffer that a little bit and show some of the overlap in perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of different kinds of facilitation. And really all facilitation is
Marco
you
has a
providing
hand
an
up.
opportunity for others to moderate. Oh, there's a hand.
Oh, Marco, sorry. Was your
Okay.
hand up?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Don't forget we are sitting down here, you. We look like we have our hand up, but we
Okay.
don't actually do.
Gotcha.
Hey, of course, you're just a knife, by the way.
I know.
Sorry. Go ahead, Vinny.
Don't remind me
So,
of that, please.
kind of discussing the kind of facilitation that we're learning here, right? There are generally about 4 different kinds of facilitation that you might do in your community. And every facilitation opportunity is a conversation that you have with users to help them moderate their spaces with you. So where moderation is oftentimes a punitive act, and no one wants to be like mean or bad or anything like that, right? It's about protecting your spaces. Whereas facilitation is giving other people in your communities the ability to interact and have discourse and manage what the rules are for themselves, right? So there are aspects of facilitation such as support groups, being able to facilitate a conversation to help people through emotions, right? There's workshops, which the entire point of a workshop facilitator is to learn something, to go through a process with other individuals, make them a part of the process so that they come out the other end with something having been learned. So technically, even though you're in a deliberative democracy course right now, you're technically in a workshop facilitation, right? Then there's the not so great version of facilitation that no one wants to be in, which is arbitration. And arbitration is when you have 2 individuals who are irreconcilable. It's an argument, you have to handle it, and that's when things have just kind of hit the fan, right? Being able to manage those discussions is a moderative practice for all community facilitators. And you don't want to be there, right? You want to be able to run workshops. You love supports, but you don't want to do arbitration. So what is the easiest way to proactively discuss and protect your spaces when things do get heated, right? How do you prevent yourself from having to facilitate an arbitration and stop, right? So this is where deliberative democracy comes into play. Where the other forms of facilitation are walking through processes of support and learning and argument, deliberative democracy is an approach that you take to building your spaces with your community. Deliberative democracy, deliberative facilitation, is simply defined as a process where individuals talk about tough problems from their own perspectives. And in this course, this specific class, we're going to discuss the reasons and the theories behind why discussions don't normally go well in your communities. Now, in last class, we discussed a lot of the personal reasons why individuals will struggle. Some of these issues, it's a 3-phase process, right? So you might have individuals in your space who have different worldviews, different opinions. And when they clash, they go through this 3-phase process of going, oh, well, I don't think the other individual that I'm talking to right now really has the information that they need. So they bring it up and they say, hey, oh, I guess you just don't know. Here's the information that you need. And then that person's mind hasn't changed, right? And it kind of starts an argument and no one's really budging on their argument. So then the second step has to happen. Well, you gave them the information, so they're no longer ignorant about the issue, but it doesn't seem like they managed to connect the logic, right? It doesn't make sense. Like maybe I'll just walk them through how the evidence, how the information is complied, which seems like a fair step, right? Except that it normally doesn't work because the other individual is going to entrench and argue as much. And we call that debate, right? But there's a reason debate tends to fail. And the reason is because we very quickly slip into the third state. So we gave them information and they didn't accept it. So we gave them connections and they have the information. They have all of the things that they need to connect it. You spent the effort of walking them through it. What are the reasons they have not to get this, but a moral or an ethical reason? You've gotten everything that you need and your mind still hasn't been changed. You must just be a bad person. And it's very easy for us to go from step 1 all the way to step 3, right? Step 2 is actually a really difficult equilibrium for us to be able to manage. So that personal process has a lot of theoretical basis for why that actually happens. And in this session, we're going to discuss the theoretical underpinnings of othering, of in-groups, and how we go about coming to trust one another in our online communities. We're going to be discussing the reason why some of those environments that get really heated, get really political, do not work, what needs to be present for a good conversation to happen. We're going to tackle something called third place theory. And then after that, we're going to spend some time providing you a model that we're going to use throughout the entire rest of this course. It's called the Kaner Model for Deliberative Conversation, which allows us to introduce to our online spaces all of the models that we need to have a better discussion and not let us slip into that stage 3, right? You're just immoral. That kind of notion of like, we've given you everything you needed, you still don't get it, you must be a bad person, right? So that's the introduction, more or less. I know that a lot of you missed a lot of the content for last session. Just so you know, there is a recording of last session as well as slides for the previous session as well. If you do want to catch up, you can access that in the Discord. That being said, I feel like we got caught up pretty well.
On the first session, that was not a streamed recording, so that requires edits, and those edits have not been done yet. So if somebody would like to volunteer to help with editing, it could be available in a part of the Discord, but yeah, not quite. Fair. The slides are available. Fair.
Yeah, I can maybe shoot it over to my video editor. That might be an option.
Okay,
maybe we can just have her go through it.
Sweet.
All right, anyway. Does anyone have any questions before we get started on what this course is and what we're going into? All right, sounds good. Okay, so let's get started. I get to click on the screen and hope it doesn't break. Did it switch over for all of you?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So it did not switch over for me.
I still see the first.
Oh, it switched over for me. Oh,
okay, so for anybody who it didn't switch for, because it did switch for me, come over to the back here and go ahead and click resync on the left-hand side. There's this little link looking thing, and it should switch for you.
It did not.
Okay, then try the
Is
reload.
it supposed to say socially constructed online?
Yes.
No.
Oh, wait, no, that's the title.
Try
so let me click it again.
Try doing reload.
Oh, there we go. Reloading worked.
Load works also. Depending on the... Both of those have different fixes, I guess.
Okay, so we should all now be looking at the Deliberative Facilitator's Guide to Fostering Civil Discourse Around Tough Problems. Everyone sees that. Great.
No, it says
so this is the
better relational outcomes.
Yeah, it's still the title card.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Go click the reload button over here.
What slide do you want it on? Sorry.
Reload.
It should be on slide 39.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. And
now it's on the certification requirements. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay, Deliberative Facilitator's Guide, right? All right. So this is the framework for the course. In the last course, we spoke about identifying the need. This class is about theories behind polarization. Next month, the class is going to take the theories and the personal infrastructure that we've worked through, and it's going to apply it to, okay, as a moderator and as a facilitator in your online communities, what strategies, what tactics, what formats and architecture can you use in order to implement on the theories that we're going to discuss today? And then once we've done so, we're going to spend a lot of time actually moving forward with this process, because this course is actually a certification course that is going to, over time, make sure that you, as a deliberative facilitator, have a certification or badge to say, hey, I know how to have these tough conversations, and we're going to regularly run them. You can trust me to be able to handle these discussions in the spaces. So in order for you to properly get certified, we are going to need you to attend, out of those 6, we'd like you to attend 4 of those discourse lectures. So congratulations, you're here. You're already well on your way to that certification. In between these monthly courses, of course, and this is just a banner announcement, we have epistemology, street epistemology sessions here in BridgeMakers. And those are essentially practice labs for all of the facilitative needs that you require in this course. And it's just a really, really small, wonderful way of us coming together to practice the actual formal skills. So we're going to ask, as part of facilitation, that you lead at least one of those epistemology courses and at least attend 4 of them, about 1 month's worth over the course of the next 6 months that we're operating in this course. And then, at the end of it all, you'll see over on the right-hand side, there's a free speech and inclusive campus image. That's actually a PDF of a national issue forums guide. It's a facilitative guide about how we foster campus communities. We're actually going to make one of those for VR Chat, and we're actually going to host an event that invites all of your VR spaces to have a discussion around a tough problem, something that you'll decide probably at the end of this course today. So in the course of creating that, we kind of need to have a better understanding of what all we're going to do. Cake, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yes, since I'm not native English, what does epistemology means?
Yeah, so epistemology is a field in philosophy about how do we think about things. So it is, how do we actually go through the process of thinking? In a facilitative or a political format, it's how do you structure environments and communication pathways to have better discussions that think about something. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. All right, so I have a request for you all. It's a required promise. I have 3 things for this course that you have to agree with before we move on. So the first one is we're going to be discussing really, really big topics. But I want you to do me a favor. Of those topics, I want you to just take one small thing that you think you'll get out of this, and then progress small on that thing. Get good at that one thing. We'll always be here, right? And then I want you to come back to us later. Come back to us with more information. Don't worry about the overwhelm. Just pick the one thing that you think is going to be important for you right now. Go implement it, and then come back with inquisitive questions and curiosity. So if you agree with these 3 things, do me a favor, give me a love or a like or an agree or a wave, something along those lines, so we are all on the same page. Oh, jumping works. Oh, I love that. Oh, that's amazing.
Hey.
All right, perfect. Wonderful. So that's over. Let's actually get started. The slides aren't moving forward for me.
I can do it. Here. It's partly why
Okay.
the bugs of them.
Whoa, that went real far, didn't it?
Oh, oops.
What slide do you want it on?
Yeah.
Oh,
41?
I see
42?
immune system?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's way too far. Alright,
Okay.
so 41, 42, 43. Alright, so what are we covering today? We're going to be covering social capital theory. So social capital theory is going to be one of the most seminal theories in all of communications. And then we're going to cover something called third places. Third places are unstructured environments for discussion. And then we're going to end with something called the wicked problems mindset. The wicked problems mindset and the Kahner model that I'm going to introduce to you, they are the most important things for knowing in deliberative democracy. Again, these are underlying theories, right? So we're not going to be talking quite yet about actually applying all of this information until next month. Next month's course is going to be all about the grounded use of this information. So you'll have like a good month to really figure it out. So first and foremost, let's talk about what social capital is. Has anyone come across this term in their work or their life before? Perfect. Ronan, would you be willing to kind of give us a quick story about how you came across it?
Okay. So when I was working, I'm retired right now. What I worked inside of a department that would create stores or build stores inside of malls or locations. Let's just call it that. And what we would often have to do is have discussions with landowners or property management groups, etc. The social capital that we often had to get into was really for the most part, our representation of ourselves, that we would make sure that they knew that what we talked about would be, let's say, authentic. It would have integrity, and they would believe us when we told them that we were going to do something, when we agreed. That was what was considered a form of social capital, of, call it, our reputation within that landowner industry. But then on top of it was actually done at a person-to-person basis. So I'll just leave with that. I don't want to get into too, but and hopefully this is close to what you're thinking about, Vinia.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else want to respond to that story? What do you think out of that story is the social capital? So for me, when it comes to reputation, there is a wonderful quote from author Tara Hunt. She wrote a book called The Power of Social Networking. And she likes to bring social capital into a very, very simple set of advice for brands. In order for you to manage social capital, you only need three things: be nice, be networked, and be loud. So when she says be nice, a lot of it is about building notoriety and reputation, right? Like you said, Ronan, it's about reputation. But that reputation is about building trust. So you have to be able to connect and build with individuals. We're going to call this, in an academic context, bonding capital. Then there's be networked, right? This is about connecting with specific individuals. I'm sure that you had vendors and other retailers and other malls that you interacted with in order to get your work done, right? So we're going to call that, in this case, linking capital. So how do you connect with other individuals in a network? And then there's a third one, right? Be loud. Talk about bridging capital. Bridging capital is going to be one of the most important pieces of capital that we're going to talk about in this course, but it's also the one everyone ignores. Bridging capital is effectively just the way that you as an individual connect community A, that you spend your time in, to community B, where you spend your off time. And you, as a connection to both communities, gives information that you've learned, a way to bridge from one community to the other. So where the first two are about your human relationships, The third one is more about the information and your presence across communities. So let's take a more academic standpoint on this. Your social capital is really about your community interactions having value. And that slide did not switch over for me. Did it switch over for everyone else?
No, it didn't switch over for me either.
Nope, not for me either.
All right.
Nope. Same here.
It says social capital and currency theory
Perfect.
to me.
So you'll see here that each of the three different kinds of capital can be easily understood as a cell that's networking in your bloodstream, right? Where bonding capital is the DNA, the nucleus of your cell. It's people getting to know each other and working in tandem. Linking capital is like the different organelles inside of a cell. How does the Golgi apparatus interact with the mitochondria, which interacts with all of the other parts of the cell, right? We're in 7th grade again, pop quiz. No. But the idea here is within your cell, how does it interact and connect? So for bonding capital specifically, let's have a quick... Did that switch over for everyone? I think I might need to actually just hang out over here. For bonding capital specifically, there's an aspect of your online communities. Let me know if you've heard this before. In marketing and industry, there's a specific term that says, always give value in advance. It's the core of marketing, it's the core of sales, it's the core of business. In communities, you are providing that value by working together with other individuals. So a useful community provides that value without really having all that much impact on the business. But that's not really very far, right? Because you need the community members in your community to be successful by their own marks. If the business were to get hit by a bus someday, would your community still have that value? Well, then it's successful. But even that's not enough, right? Like when we talk about communities, we don't talk about this sheer economic value, and we don't always have someone at its center, right? So a gauged community develops relationships that go beyond that value to create more powerful structures. But the number one determinant factor for whether or not your community is strong and capable and healthy is how meaningful that community is to individuals. And that meaning is usually developed through one holy grail. The most important thing for most community managers to build in their community is self-disclosure. I feel safe enough, and I have known you long enough, and I am happy enough to share with you information about my life as it pertains to this community. It's self-disclosure. And that self-disclosure is bonding capital, right? When we look at the necessary determinants, what is required for you to actually create a community? Did everyone see that slide switch over? I suspect I'm going to need to ask on a regular. Did anyone see that? All right. No. It didn't switch over for me either.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm just staying here now.
Yes. I know, right? Oh. Okay, so what everyone should see is McMillan and Chavez. Okay. Yeah, I might just be running it from here. So we should now be looking at a slide on what creates a sense of belonging in your online communities. And this is one of the most seminal academic research papers ever produced for our industry. This is what runs the community management industry now. There are 4 general things that you require for a community. The first one is a sense of membership. I am one of the in-group, and I feel safe, and I have a sense of belonging in this space because I have that. I also feel I have a sense of autonomy. I have a sense of influence about what's happening in this community. And I care about the people around me. I care about the people in this community, and I have a shared emotional connection with them. And also, my personal needs, the personal reasons why I choose to show up every day, are integrated and connected with the needs of the group. I have integrated and fulfilled everyone else's needs by my presence. This is bonding capital. These are the 4 things that you're looking for within any given community that you're a part of. Let's switch it to the next. That was frankly adorable. I don't know whose cat that was, but that was really adorable. So now we're going to move on to our second form of capital, which is called linking capital. Now, who's scared by this social network graph? This social network diagram? Who is absolutely terrified looking at that? This is what linking capital is. Barbie knows a lot of people, and she's the center of her social group, right? So she knows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on this graph. She's at the center of her community, and she's built a lot of really close relationships and connections. Diva, on the other hand, knows a lot of people, but not very well. You can see she's knowing like 5 or 6 people, but she's been pushed off of the graph. She's a little bit further distant. So where Diva is really rich in linking capital, she knows a lot of people. She's not built as many close relationships with those individuals. So she's rich in linking capital. She's not rich in bonding capital. Over time, when you see connections between individuals, you start to understand that there's a certain method to the madness of being able to connect with people. For example, let's talk about Dude, right? Dude knows Barbie tangentially. They've been at a party one time, right? But Dude wants to contact Barbie for any specific reason. Well, he's going to say, hey, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a girl who knows Ken, who knows another guy who can get you to Barbie, right? So Dude is connected. He's just not necessarily part of the in-group, right? It's this form of networking that when we move into the reality of human spaces, suddenly makes this complex web of what am I looking at make a lot of sense, right? So this is actually a network graph, links of one individual's LinkedIn profile. So you can see that this one individual has 3 major professional communities that they are a part of. That blue dot right there in the center that has the convergence of the green and the blue and the red clouds, that's the profile. And you can see that he spends a lot of time in 3 very large communities. And in those communities, he has one friend. Can you find the other friend on this graph? He has one friend who's doing essentially the exact same thing that he is, right? There are 2 blue dots right there in the center of this graph, and they are both leaders and activists in those communities. You can also see, however, that how close they are to each of those communities also broadly differs. So what do you think in comparison to the blue and the red communities? What do you think that green community is for those 2 blue dots?
I don't see a green.
One quick thing, Venya. Since it is not syncing for all of us, could you inform everyone when you're switching a page? Because you're talking about a different page that everyone else sees. It's very confusing.
I apologize. You should be looking at a cloud of dots in a social networking graph. Yeah. That should be the only thing currently on the page right now.
But there's no names or anything on it, yeah?
Okay. Nope, there's nothing else on it but the cloud.
Okay, yeah. Can you say that all again?
Yeah, remember, this graph is a graph of one individual's LinkedIn profile, which is a professional community, right? One individual's LinkedIn profile has 3 major communities that they are a part of. 2 of them are really quite large. What do you think the green one might represent?
Maybe like a...
And remember, it's about linking capital.
Secondary community that's like formed off of the blue community?
Not quite.
secondary interest?
Secondary
Yep,
interest?
you're correct. Yes. So on LinkedIn, everyone tends to use LinkedIn specifically for professional purposes, right? But that's boring, right? Like people don't like going to LinkedIn just for that. What they did, however, was they have a specific interest in a side project, a side community that is also on GitHub, where they make open source commits in their free time. So where the blue one is their primary work environments, they work in IT and networking. The red one is actually in the marketing, sales, and software automations. So because they work in IT, pretty much all of their clients are going to be in that area. So it's further away because they don't actually do that work. That's their clients' communities. And then the green one is a hobbyist community.
Mm. Cool.
So we're going to leave that specific area, but you can see how that linking capital produces a larger concept of bridging capital. This one individual has now connected 3 different communities. So I'm moving to the next slide now. You should now see that bridging capital is kind of like our immune system, right? Whereas the first 2 are internal to the cell in maintaining the cell's health, bridging capital is about how the cells coexist with one another. But there's a problem. We don't spend a lot of time actually focusing on that. So where bridging capital is nurturing our connections, oftentimes people don't think about how we need to interact beyond those insulated spaces. And it's the insulation of those spaces, participating only in that community, where we run into problems.
Jenny, I got to interrupt.
We're going to progress to the next slide. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Luck, do you mind putting yourself on orange? We want to make sure that we don't have people flowing in here without being oriented to this space. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to watch a clip. I'm really, really hoping that this works for everyone, where Robert Putnam is going to put into context how these capitals operate in his environments. So I'm going to click this. Let me know if it doesn't play for you in a little bit.
But I also see, I go into the Trump world a lot. I go to MAGA events, and I see in these groups, I see connection, but I also see like a lack of accountability for people.
Yeah.
We talk about how cruelty can fester in these. Like, I hear this question in this that is posed in this film, which is like, you need to join a group to save American democracy.
Yeah.
But what do you say to people who are like, well, the oath keepers are letting people in? Like, how do you find the right group, or how is this a time that's reflective of people finding the wrong groups, or people feeling alone and therefore being manipulated by others who want to utilize that for untoward means?
It's a little bit of all of that. Can I use some jargon on this show?
I love jargon. This show is so pro-jargon. Oh, we love pie charts and jargon on this show. The kid. Come on, Professor, give me some.
Well, the distinction is between bridging social capital and bonding social capital. So, bridging social capital are my ties to other people just like me. So my ties to other white, male, elderly, Jewish professors. That's my bonding social capital. But we're all bonding together because we're all similar.
Yeah.
And bridging social capital are my ties to people who are different from me. Like my ties to, I don't know, to people of a different race or a different gender or a different age or whatever. I'm not saying bridging good, bonding bad, because if you get sick, the people who bring you chicken soup will be your bonding social capital. But I am saying that a society like ours, which is very diverse, needs a lot of bridging social capital. With me so far? I mean, and so bridging good, bonding bad.
You don't have to dumb it down that much. Okay?
But here, wait a minute. It's also the case that bridging social capital is harder than bonding social capital. My grandmother actually knew that. She said, Bobby, birds of a feather flock together. She meant, Bobby, bonding social capital is easier to build than bridging social capital. She didn't think I'd understand what I meant, which is why she used the avian metaphor. But okay, so we're stuck now in a situation in which the kind of connections we need are hard to build, and the kinds of connections you could say sort of substitute connections, that is the bonding social capital, that's what the Proud Boys are. Is that, I tried to answer your question.
You did it. You used jargon and you used a nice little anecdote about the birds. I understand. The bridging capital is going to be more difficult.
Yeah.
Where are examples where that is successful? I think right now you have a lot of people here who feel perhaps lost, disconnected from culture and or society and or their neighbors. Like, what are examples that you're seeing of bridging this divide and finding that capital?
Well, first of all, can I say, there is a documentary movie that was the occasion for our getting together and talk, and they have a lot of, in the movie...
You're talking about your movie, the movie that you're in, that follows you.
Yeah,
you don't have to be coy about it. This medium is all about being blunt. Just say it like, watch my movie, kids.
What I meant was the people who produced the movie, Pete and Rebecca Davis, highlight groups that any of us could form right now, new kinds of groups, not the old-fashioned Rotary clubs or whatever, new kinds of groups, but they're bridging, and they're not about politics. Could I emphasize that? We don't want to begin, this is what AOC said, we don't want to begin now by having if we're trying to move the country back in a better direction, we shouldn't begin thinking we've got to start with the politics. We've got to start with just knowing our neighbors. Mm-hmm. She meant to say bowling leagues. She didn't. What she said was knitting leagues. Okay. But so...
Are you mad she didn't reference your book? Is that what you're saying right here?
No, because authors don't care whether we become famous. We just want to be sure we get the facts right.
That's not been the case as far as I've seen it. But yeah,
Okay, so back. What do we do now? We have to begin local. We have to begin with kids, because that's the next generation. We have to begin not necessarily with politics. And you asked me about how do we bridge. Can I just use a personal example? I live up in a little neighborhood out in the sticks in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. We have a little neighborhood association. That's my one group. Yeah. And we have a lot of things in common. We all have to worry about the snow, and I want to make sure that someone's going to help me. I'm getting a little old, so I need to have somebody else shovel me out when it gets bad.
Yeah.
And we were having a neighborhood association meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I discovered that one of these people was a Trump supporter. Now hold on, I know you know that I'm making a subtle point here. So here's the theoretical point. When you want to bridge, look for something that bonds across that, right? So what bonds me and this guy are who's going to shovel out, and are we going to help one another shovel? And can we get this snow plow to actually come? Yeah. That's our bonding. But just for a moment, I was enabled to put myself in his shoes and him in my shoes, because we were bonded by all these other things, but bridging the political divide. Maybe that's a little too personal as a story, but it's a story that illustrates that's how you do it. You don't try to force yourself to make friends with people who you think are evil. You make encounters with other people who you know are decent people. He actually would come over and shovel my sidewalks, but he turns out also to be a Trump supporter. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Probably not.
I believe it. I feel like, as somebody...
What? Did it pause for everyone?
All right.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. After that, it's basically just Daily Show ad. So, all right. So that is the implementation for social capital. Let's take a quick moment, right? Because we've kind of been doing a lot of lesson, and we have a few other theories to do first. But let's have a little bit of a discussion about what social capital looks like in your personal lives. Ronan explained a very, very good use for how social capital operates for work and brand. But I would like us to kind of separate. Let's have everyone to the left of Blurdette over in one group, and then everyone to the right of Blurdette in another group. let's go ahead and just divide the room in half. And let's talk for some time about some instances that you may have experienced social capital with. So
And,
how many do we
go
have?
ahead.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Oh,
6,
sorry.
7, 8, 9, 10. So 5 and 5. Let's do a group of 5 and 5.
Go ahead and put yourself on earmuff mode, and if you're still having trouble, you can move outside the walls of the theater, and there's still some solid ground out there. But the question specifically, to repeat it back to you, Venia, is what are examples of social capital that you have in your life, or bonding capital?
Yep, that you've experienced in your life.
Okay. Examples of social capital that you've experienced in your life. Put your earmuff mode on. We'll come get you to talk if you need to move outside of the theater space. How many minutes, Venia?
I think about 10 minutes, and then we'll
Okay.
take about a 5-minute break.
So I'll give everybody a 2-minute warning. And Venia, maybe you stick with one group, and then we'll switch about 5 minutes through.
Yep, that sounds great to me.
Okay, so I'm with you guys. Let's move out. And for those of you who arrived late, just so you know, this is live recording and streamed.
Hi there.
Okay.
I'm on iOS.
Everybody slept well today?
All right. So I'm putting my earmuff mode on. Otherwise, it's going to be loud. There we go. Got Blurdette and
Okay,
Sim. Are you coming with us? Sim, you coming? All right.
It's quite handy to just walk outside the walls.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it stops here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far, but it definitely lets you. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So, and welcome, Luck. I don't know how long you've been here, but welcome. And yeah, we got a little group going on here. So, what does social capital look like in everybody's lives? How do you know you have
But
it?
I also see, I go into the Trump world a lot. I go to MAGA events,
I
and
think,
I see in
oh.
these groups.
I
Sorry,
am.
let me-
It was you.
I don't know why that
Yeah.
happened, but I'll move it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we actually joined. Well, first of all, I got. I was thinking of the linking capital, like it that for me, like being not an American and actually being in many different groups. It's it made me think that it was like a totally new perspective that I haven't even thought about before, that I'm actually rich in that department at least at least somewhere in my life. So but yeah, social capital. I have actually joined the local voluntary fire department in my town, and I think that's one of the things that reminded me of like wanting to do something for the. I'm not sure if I'm like answering or touching the subject, but yeah, I'm thinking that it's like I wanted to do something like meaningful besides like desk jobs or something, and yeah, so I felt that I wanted to join the fire department, and they were kind of to let me in, and yeah, so it's been really nice there, and I feel that it's kind of building the social capital in this town that I'm actually still quite new to. We moved as a family to this current town that we live in, and it's a great way to get connected with people, and that especially in the town. And I noticed that I'm suddenly started like getting more like hey hello, how is it going, and those kinds of things in the street. Whereas before it was more like just kind of like I didn't know anyone, or so yeah.
So it's
So
actually,
for me,
I hear that there's a body language that is telling you almost that you are accruing that social capital. And what a way to get involved with a new village. Hey, can I come fight your fires for you, even though I don't necessarily know how to value anybody in this town yet? I mean, that is a way to jump in.
yeah.
I'm sure you were the talk of the town of being like, why would somebody come and volunteer for a fire department? But yeah, that is definitely a sincere way to say, I care about your emergencies. So lovely. Yeah,
Right.
it's a good
Yeah.
example. Who else? Social capital. How do you build it? How do you experience it?
I'll go. I would say my social capital is probably the XR community through LinkedIn, and then that kind of grew beyond LinkedIn. Before I found the XR community, like my only social capital was kind of like my workplace, and then like a crappy husband. And so my position in my workplace was like I felt very invisible, and I finally just decided I need people, and I need a passion and people who are passionate about that passion. And when I found the XR community and I found people like you, Hea, that's when I started to like, I don't know, just kind of come back to life.
That's really interesting.
Because everybody was so welcoming and like, oh yeah, let me connect you to this person, and let me like, invite you to this world hop, and like everyone is just so enthusiastic to share their passion for XR.
Wow, lovely. And what an interesting thing to think about, that we all can have these implosions of circles or physical reality villages. Like I've met a lot of people who have moved to new towns and didn't volunteer for the fire department, but they fell into VR. And then they kind of went from this stress transition, then ensuing isolation, to learning what it felt like to be just have people so excited that you're there and wanting to see the world through your eyes. And that set a new standard for them in meeting their community and physical reality of going, oh, this is what it feels like to be valued. Oh, this is why I left my last community, or I'm glad I'm no longer in it. Oh, this is what I'm looking for now in my physical reality. I would like people to greet me like this and be really glad I showed up. And so social capital can be like a new bar that we set for ourselves, and we look for people who recognize us that way. That's lovely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting to just by knowing the terms like linking capital and the bridging capital and those it like helps to just with the terms, it helps one to like think of these things and how actually it's valuable for life in general and in other areas as well.
Almost be able to measure the amounts, do I have linking capital here, bridging, etc. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to miss Sims and Luck. Welcome again. And I'm going to switch places with Venia now to see if I can pull her out of that group and we can get some samples both sides. So keep going, and Venia should be over here soon. Okay, Venia, I'm tagging.
Are within this in this community of the LGBTQ plus, because I see that as part of my mission too. And it's not about changing either of them. It's all about actually demonstrating that the two of them can actually coexist, which at times can be a bit challenging. So that's a very different sort of set of circumstances. So I used that as my example. I'm wondering whether I should shut up and let somebody else talk here.
Sounds really rich.
Sorry.
We've got about 4 more minutes. So
Oh,
just letting
okay.
you all know
Okay.
that. And so maybe if there's a lot of people who haven't shared, try to get in maybe just a minute of an observation.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
do you build
Sorry.
social capital? No, Ronan, sounds really rich. All right, who wants to go next?
So, if I basically understood it correctly, what brings us, for example, together is the furry community, but in the
Got it.
end, we all share a different goal within our own groups. But in what basically built up this friendship and what really connects us together is the furry community itself.
Okay.
And okay, that's so cool because it seems so odd that I keep forgetting that there is a furry community because I just kind of look and say, yeah, these people are on VR chat just like everybody else is on VR chat. And I never think of how that works that way. That's actually cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Yay. Who hasn't
Sorry.
gone yet? Who would like to share how you build social capital or how you notice it? Team?
Yeah. So I was part of the Twitch Plays Pokemon community for quite some time, and there was a lot of examples of different sub-communities inside the regular community that often got at odds with each other, but we bonded over the shared, enjoyment of the stream that we were watching. There were people that were part of the Twitch chat. There were people that were part of the Discord, the subreddit, and there would be some overlap in there. Some people would stick to their own subgroups. Some people would view the whole as as part of the whole thing. But regardless of who you were, you knew someone that knew the community for what it was.
So there was something about the people who embodied the culture of the community, and that even if you didn't know who was in charge, you knew somebody who was really holding that torch of what we do as a community, how we behave together.
Exactly.
Wow, that's interesting. So they're like the social capital kind of hubs of like, this is how we exchange our bonds. They were kind of the emblems or the core representatives of sorts, whether or not they had those titles.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool.
Yes, some of the leadership of that was shared between the stream and like the community on Reddit and Discord. There was a lot of interconnectedness that some of the people shared there.
Lovely, lovely. We are at the 10-minute mark, but maybe if Armani hasn't gone, maybe Armani, you can take the last minute. And then I'm going to go.
I took a little bit of time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah,
So everybody did.
In the very beginning.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can kind of
Go ahead.
explain a little bit because it's like I mean, I'm thinking about on VR chat. There's I guess generational groups too. At least in terms of how I don't know if it's how we link or how I'm not sure exactly how the kinds of capital shows up in statistically, but that's just what I noticed is how different generations kind of stick together, but sometimes, especially at least thinking about how we moved in old space, there's a little bit older groups in there, and we all kind of networked a little bit more outside of our groups, I guess. To hear in your chat, but I mean that's anecdotal from my perspective, but or that's from my perspective. But.
So when you say generations, do you mean just kind of like waves of people exiting due to burnout and coming in due to new technology being released, or how do you differentiate generations?
By generational, I guess what I mean by that is I'm talking about millennial, Gen Z, or
Okay,
early
gotcha.
millennial,
Yeah.
late millennial.
So it's
Yeah.
literal age groups that are kind of
Yeah.
finding
age
each
groups,
other
essentially.
through this app. Huh.
Uh-huh.
How they overlap.
Which it makes it kind of easier, but you can still, in a way, tell a lot more, I guess. At least. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's really.
It's
I wonder
easier
how that.
via chat to talk to people that are different in your age and actually see their side of things than in real life. Because if I sit on a roll in Yard chat to find a person to communicate with, is easier. I just go up to that person and start a conversation with the person. And if we both connect with each other, we can have that conversation for hours. If I, for example, sit in a bar and let's just say a 7-year-old, I know in America you need to be 21 for that. I'm from Europe. You need to be 16 to be allowed to drink.
Wow.
It is different. If I go to a bar and go to a 16, 17-year-old person, that person says to me, fuck off, go away. In VR chat, it is easier to have a connection, see sides of people you would never talk with in the outside world of VR chat, because you simply can't. That's something I recognize too.
Which has its pros and cons to it as far as like
Yep.
safety
Yep.
and
Yeah.
recognizing that like there is this sense of like, oh well, we both have blue eyes or something, and so we have that in common in our avatars, but we don't necessarily know that this person has been around in the world a lot longer and has learned how to read people and potentially has very high social needs that they're not going to say because they don't even know it, but they could pull on a younger person who doesn't have that ability to set boundaries as much and misuse them. So yeah, social capital, maybe what we're identifying here is there's definitely a new freedom of that in virtual reality, but there's also some problems sometimes with the boundaries and how invisible they are and how hard it is to flag when building that social capital could be really dangerous sometimes. So yeah, such a tumultuous idea to close on, but
Yeah,
let's find our seats. Take yourself off earmuff mode, and I'm gonna go grab the other group because I'm sure they would stick there for another 20 minutes if I didn't. So let's see if we can grab people.
Oh, so, it sounds like we might actually be sold.
I've come to kidnap you all.
Oh, oh no,
it's way past 10 minutes.
Are we?
Okay. Yes.
Oh no.
Come back. Okay. Go ahead and pull yourselves off earmuff mode if you did put it on so that we can all hear each other again. So earmuff mode off, everybody.
Okay. So it looks like we definitely may have lost track of time.
Yes, we did.
Wow. Live a minute, run away.
Yes. That's okay.
I like that.
This has been so great, though. So I need to go
Yay.
back by 2 slides, I believe.
Okay, let me know.
We need to go to the wicked problems slide.
Okay, do you know what slide it is, or it's just called that?
It's been infinitely loading since I rejoined.
Okay.
So we should be looking at slide 55.
Okay. Let me click on that. All right.
All right, great.
Problems.
Okay. So that is the most tantamount theory of deliberative facilitation, right? Understanding the way that you build capital, the way that you garner trust among strangers is the source of social capital, right? But how do you actually do that, right? How do you set up the appropriate environments to encourage social capital to build and to allow for good habits of building bridging capital not to be overcome by bad habits of building in groups and trust and kind of huddling together and causing isolation, right? So it's these elements that are difficult in deliberative facilitation. And we can better understand how we make those decisions by understanding something called the wicked problems mindset. Has anyone run into these terms before? What a wicked problem is?
No.
Okay. Does anyone want to take a gander at what it might be?
It sounds like a really bad problem.
Yeah, kind of like maybe those like catch-22 kind of problems.
Oh, you're really close.
Is it some kind of problem that there is not a clear solution or something? Or
Perfect.
Sort of
That's
like
exactly what it
separating.
is. You are correct. So let's have an example. So in Los Angeles, traffic is terrible. Everyone agrees traffic is really bad. All of the highways are basically parking lots. Everyone hates it. The commute to and from work is upwards of like 2 hours. Takes a lot out of your life, unless you love podcasts. And a lot of people know that if they would just build a road through this specific neighborhood, it would improve things, right? Or if they would just put an on-ramp and an off-ramp here so that people could bail when the roads get too heavy, that would be very helpful. Except that engineers can spend plenty of time fixing or building or designing the road system in LA. It's totally solvable, right? It's just a really difficult problem to solve. But if you put enough road traffic experts into a room for long enough, they'll come out and go, here's how we can fix LA's traffic. They can do that. Except that when you put that into the political sphere and you say, hey, we're going to build a road through this neighborhood, what do you think they're going to say? Well, no, we don't want you to build a road through the neighborhood. We want better roads. LA wants better roads, but we don't want those roads at the cost of our neighborhood safety, right? So this is what a wicked problem is. In the words of Martin Carcassonne, and the slide should have changed for y'all. The slide did not change for me.
Oh, yeah, it did. Now it did.
In the words of Martin Carcassonne, you can hire an expert to solve hard problems. You can lock enough of them into a room, and they'll come out the end with at least an approach to solving a complex problem. But wicked problems are those that just simply do not have solutions. And they are the inherent flaw of democracy. When everyone has an opinion or direction or a preference, and they have the right to say those things, and they have the right to campaign or to argue, often there is no solution that is really going to work for everyone, right? So we have to work through this. The inherent flaw of democracy is that everyone has a voice, right? So moving into the next thing, you should now be seeing a slide on Jürgen Habermas. Yep. We see massive complexities on a global stage, especially a virtual stage, where our movement into new media, and by that he means social media and non-traditional news networks, has been aggravated in a lot of ways by global challenges in climate and immigration. And this comes back to what we started with, is that process of saying, hey, you don't have the information. Hey, here's how I view this information. Oh, you must be terrible because you don't see the problem here, right? So it's been aggravated by a lot of really tough, complex social problems. But a lot of our subcultures just simply haven't built the bridging capital necessary for us to have appropriate discussion about those problems. And for a set of affected, isolated subcultures, and this isn't just talking about the alt-right, this isn't just talking about radical left, this is talking about all walks of our life, right? Just in our own local cities. When was the last time you participated actively in a local political situation? When was the last time you went to a town hall or saw a neighborhood meeting, right? So a lot of this stuff has kind of gone its own way, and it started to isolate. Moving to the next slide. In order to solve that problem, we have to ask ourselves, what limits And what availabilities do we need to be putting into the conversation? Who gets behind the velvet rope for us to be able to have those conversations in some form of ready fashion? But how big does the event need to be for them to actually have an appropriate larger conversation? Because we can't allow everyone into a space, right? Otherwise, it's going to be an absolute chaos. But we have to allow the right diversity of people into the space for that conversation to actually be representative. And this is the issue with deliberative democracy. This is the issue with facilitation. Because if you have too little of an area, it's not really going to work. It's only going to be bonding capital. And if it's too large, it's going to be largely impossible for people to build that bonding capital. And this is where we get to Ray Oldenburg's concept of the great third place. You should be looking now at a slide of what a third place is. Okay, so third places are, who wants to take a guess at what a first place and a second place is? Who wants to take a guess at what those are?
A first place is like work or college.
Oh, that's really, really close. Yeah. What's the other one we might be missing?
At home? Like family?
Yeah, exactly. So a first place is your home life. It's where you're going to be spending the vast majority of your time. And then just like Blairdat said, a second place is the place where you spend the vast majority of your time working. So a first place is where you reside. A second place is where you do the vast majority of your work. It's the stuff that you do. A third place is where you go to experience society at large, to relax in a space where you are not related to the work you do and the life you live, right? So these are homes where unrelated people relate to one another. And Oldenburg put together a set of requirements for what actually composes a third place. And this is really helpful for us because it means that if we can satisfy this list, we might have developed the perfect environment that we need to have a strong conversation where strangers can connect. So first and foremost is neutral ground. We can't just be going into specific clubs or specific spaces or cocoons. Like support groups for LGBTQIA people are really important, but they're not a third place, right? It needs to be neutral ground. A pub in your local eatery is invited by everyone, right? It also can't be hugely expensive, right? Like there needs to be some level of social equality, social equity involved. So the different social classes need to be able to meet. It can't have any specific lines around race or boundary or anything like that. And most importantly is it needs to have a conversational focus. So a bar might be a third place, but a nightclub certainly isn't. Because when you go to a nightclub, actually having like appropriate conversation is super, super difficult to do, right? So that conversational focus is really important. Now, there are...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm behind you. That's why you can't see me. If we bring it down to our groups, for example, and not to everything, because I can only relate it to the furry community. I'm sorry, because I'm mostly part of the furry community. A first place, if I understand it correctly, would be if I say, okay, I'm only allowing furry people in my community. Everyone else is out of my community. A second place would be if I allow multiple groups, and the third place would be if I allow everyone. Is that correct?
Not quite. So let's say for your furry community that you have a specific home where only furries are able to exist, but there's no real task, right? Like you're not working on anything. You're just hanging out. So that would be a good first place. It's a place that you find home. It's your home away from home, your cocoon, right? Then let's say you start to work on a project. You want to create an event for the furry community. You start to do work for that community. It's very task oriented. It's focused toward a specific goal. That's a second place, right? Because you've now removed the sense of this is a home and you've now made it this is a workplace. A third place, on the other hand, is when you invite all of your community members there into a different environment that none of you have any control over and that everyone can join. So if you go to a bar instance here on VR chat, that's a third place. Right.
Okay.
So basically,
there are
public spaces in VR chat are the ultimate third spaces because they are not usually moderated or contained by anything.
Right. In a lot of ways, but there's some caveats here, right? Because in order for them to be neutral ground and a social leveler and have a conversational focus, they need to be really open, right? But third places also can't be too open, which is where we get the rest of our criteria from. So you should now be seeing criteria 4, 5, and 6, which is it must be accessible and accommodating. If you have a place that is so large and so equitable and everyone can join, it might not really be all that accommodating to individuals who struggle to interact, right? And those interactions have to occur regularly over time. So it can't just be an event where you're saying, hey, everyone, come talk. It needs to include continual unplanned interactions. So you walk in, there's people there, and you feel like you can actually interact. So if the place is too big, if you're at a festival, that doesn't work as a third place, right? Like that's just a public space that doesn't encourage communication. So there's a limit now. The continual interactions need to be there. And if you make it too big, too bombastic, or too set up, people are going to look for senses of organization that don't let them clash together. And that means that your space also needs to be plain. It needs to be pretty low profile. Nothing really special about it. People need to feel comfortable, not implying for themselves a sense of structure. So it can't be too big. It can't be too small. And this brings about 2 more requirements as a result of this too big, too small dichotomy. So you should now be able to see conditions 7 and 8. It needs to be playful, and it needs to feel comforting without having any explicit structure to it. So people need to feel like they can crack jokes, like they can get to know one another, like there's not specific cultural rules that they're not able to follow so that they don't feel like they're walking on glass. It needs to feel like a home away from home. Not too small, not too big. It's a Goldilocks space. It's just right. So if you can build a third place over time that encourages bridging capital and connections, now we have a space that is well and truly primed for strangers to get to know each other. This is what a third place is. So knowing all of this information on third places, and the slide isn't moving forward, you're now able to create the best environment for deliberative conversations by having a space where people have interacted about things that aren't political first. So you can set the conditions for your community for deliberative facilitation later. So we should now be looking at big work time. We're done with the lesson, right? We're done with all of this stuff. We're now going to move into some homework. And that homework is going to be specifically about, okay, how do we go about setting up this environment? Is everyone currently looking at the big work time structure for an issue guide?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So here's what we're going to be doing. We are going to switch gears from theory, and we're going to take a look at how a National Issues Forum Guide, which is the federal process for deliberative facilitation, actually builds the guide that allows for people to run an event that operates just like this. We're going to break out into groups, and we're going to spend some time just exploring the way that that issue guide is formatted and connected. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time going, okay, we're familiar with the format. let's give it a go, right? Like, let's talk about the questions. And once we do, just so you all know, the entire purpose of this course over the course of the next 6 months is going to be to produce our own version of that issue guide for a VR chat problem.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
So, Vania, do we
So,
want
What
to?
means NFI directly?
Oh.
Huh?
What is NIF?
What
NIF
is
is-
NIF?
Yes. So NIF stands for National Issues Forums. It's a federal association in America that specifically publishes guides for really tough discussions. So the one that we talked about was, how can universities manage free speech platforms without giving platforms to hate speech and stuff like that? So where do universities draw the line on free speech on campus? So that's going to be the guide that we use. Now, as a sneak peek, before we do move into that, as a sneak peek, this is what we're going to be doing next month, right? And this is the way that your national issues guide is formatted. So you don't need to know everything about this. Just keep it in mind, because we're going to be going over this next time. This is called the Kaner model for political debates. There are 3 phases. There's establishing the need. Here's why I think that we need to do this thing in our community. Then there's the plan. Here are several approaches that we think we might have to tackling the problem. And people normally go through a bit of a groan zone. And then there's practicality. Okay, what exactly is actually feasible for us to do right now? Sadly, unfortunately, a lot of people get through the need and plan phase all in one go, all in a single meeting. And then they say, okay, now we have action items, go off and do the practical stuff. So we do the first 2 in a single hour, and then we don't do the third one together at all. So what really needs to happen, as you're looking at the issue guides, you'll actually see that the issue guide is set up to have a conversation 3 times. Once for the need, going all the way through to the convergence zone, once for the plan, and once for the practicality. So we'll actually discuss this more in depth next month. This is going to be next month's backbone, so a little bit of a sneak peek. But keep this chart in mind as you go through the guide. Do we want to move over to the dot model world, and then let's take a look at what the guide looks like in the Discord and here?
Absolutely.
Seem good?
Yeah. And yeah, I'm doing that right now. Pulling that up. Okay. Yay. And for those
Very sorry I went so far over.
Oh, this is still awesome. For those of you who aren't yet in our BridgeMakers community, just make sure to come talk to me after the event today, and we'll check in before I send you that invite. Okay, so instance, we're going to do, and please, if you haven't, make sure you're on orange. All right, here we go. Drop portal. So hop in our door here.
And as we're making the switch over, let's take a little bit of a break. I forgot to work that break in.
It's okay. Yeah, let's hop into the next world, and then we'll take a little body break.
Hey, you. I would love to talk to you in the break.
Yeah, sure. Afterwards. Yay.
Oh, is there not? Was there a portal down?
Oh, you can't see this? Okay. Let me.
I'm not in the group.
Yeah, it's a group.
Oh, it's just a friend. I'm on iOS. Here's someone trying to bring up the portal here.
Are you still there?
Okay. Oh God. Okay. I crashed. Sorry about that. Hey, way to hold on. I'm very proud of you. It's like, what the heck? Okay. So sending you an invite. Okay. You should have an invite. And just let's make sure to check in after the group's over. So usually we do a little more of a conversation, but we'll roll with it. Okay. And then I'm gonna
Sounds
drop.
good. And I'm
Yeah.
currently filling out the online form too.
Oh, awesome. You are on it. That's great. Okay. So I'm dropping portal. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Can you
joining.
see it now? Great. Oof. Make sure everything's still sharing.
There's that product, or if it's like a product
Yeah.
that a company wants
Thank
their
you,
employees to use, then it is on between the
Okay.
employees and the
I
company.
got it. Thank you, Armani.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Oh, yay, another community manager. But I'm going to flip this one. It's going to be, oh, yay.
Why am I crashing?
So there's a book by Adrian Sayer. He is the community director for Vanilla Forums and also for Community Leaders Institute. He published a book called The Accidental Community Manager, and that's going to be where I ask us tonight, for sure. Lead accidental community. Yeah, I have 1,000 others as well, and low key, if we were at that point, I could share my book, but my book wouldn't get started.
Who has access to the video player? I need to turn that stuff off.
Yeah. So Team Vista.
I'm lagging so much in here. Okay,
Oh,
I
is it the
grabbed.
video player?
I grabbed.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's what my problem was. All right, I gotta find Team.
Whoa, what the?
Oh,
The
that's
video
the
player is
wall.
taking a big part of it.
Oh, no.
Team, can I grab you for a sec?
Video player?
There's a video player?
I
There
can
is.
stop that.
What?
Yeah.
And actually,
Thank you
Team,
very much.
I'm gonna send you a link if that's all right. This is a early draft of a world, and so we don't have it on administrators. We just have it on whoever got in here first. So congratulations.
Sure.
And then you can put it in there. Let me.
Okay.
Just remind
Are you sending it through Discord or?
Yeah. I just gotta grab the link here.
Okay.
This is interesting. I love how we are all rolling with the glitches so freaking much. It's awesome. Okay.
Glitches work. Or don't. Whatever. That's the way it goes.
That's how it is. That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
I guess the other 4 meetings will be also held by you. Is that correct?
The other classes will be held by me, yes. The street epistemology events will be basically lab, and those will actually be run by all of you.
Nice.
So we'll be asking that you attend.
Can we find a way to make it 90% I'm proud and I'm happy to be part of it, but 90%
I see ya.
of what you're talking about,
Okay.
I have no clue what you're talking about. I don't understand.
One moment.
Because
Gotcha.
it is business English.
Mhm.
Business in English is a thing when you are not talking.
You want me
native
to
English,
put
you
that
know,
into the
language
stream?
is
Yeah,
not
so go ahead and paste that in there,
I
and then
see
start
what
it
you
at
are talking about.
1949 would be
It is
great.
not a criticizing point. It is just a
1949,
thing.
okay.
I simply I
Takes
feel
a village.
useless here because
Crazy
I don't
work
need to
is it?
participate in here when I have no clue what this is about. That's why I'm asking so many
And-
questions. What is this?
Getting a video
What
error
is
here.
this? Because
Here,
I
one
simply
Oh, the
second.
don't
YouTube video's
understand
not
what
working?
it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If we find
Totally
a
get
way
it.
No.
that even people who are
Retrying
not
load.
native
Yeah,
English
it's not
understand
loading.
what it is going on about, it
Well,
would be awesome because,
I
for example,
unlocked the video
NIF,
stream,
that
so
is a
maybe you can
thing
try.
that doesn't
yeah,
exist
let me
down
try
here.
it.
I never
See what
heard
goes on.
of
Yeah.
it before.
I actually have never tried this in here,
Right.
so
With
theoretically
the
it works.
explanation,
but
I
not
understood what it is
necessarily.
going on about. But before that, I
Yeah,
had
it's
no
it failed to
clue.
load video.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
I think for National Issues
so-
forums, it is an American association,
Did you
so
hear
I
something?
totally understand if you
I
don't
heard
know it. Really, all the forum does is just to give you the document that we want to create by the end of this all. So, if you take a look at the document, I do think it's a really, really good
Oh,
call out that you might
interesting.
struggle a lot with
Okay, I
this
think I
portion
know
for
what's
theory.
wrong.
So I'm going to keep that in mind. So next session, I will endeavor to remove any jargon language. I'm not sure if you could tell, but I tend to speak somewhat more academically, so please call me out if that's a struggle in any way, shape, or form. Just call me out and I'll try to like manage that.
Okay, try it one
Ultimately,
more time.
what I would
please.
really love is because
you
this
can.
is a certified course,
It worked now.
I like
Or actually,
for
I
other people
can.
to be certified as facilitators and then go on to
Yeah,
teach
no,
this course
everything I've
themselves,
tried,
potentially in
Okay,
different
I got
I seem
languages.
to be able to.
So
It
if
was
you're willing to
accidentally
stick it out
part
with
of it.
me,
So
I'm
now I
wondering
really
if we
don't
might be able to translate it and then have the course delivered in your native language, if that's something that you want to do.
Right.
We can sit together. That's no problem. I'm happy to help on that. That my native English is German. My native English, my native language.
That's funny.
God, my
Yay.
brain is not braining anymore.
Oh, it's showing up. That's it.
Yay. Okay.
So
Okay,
not
there
to
you
get
go.
sucked
Yep,
into
okay.
conversation, but it's time for us to come back. It looks
Where's
like
the
we only
video?
have about 20 minutes left on clock. So what I would like to do is I'd like to get those 20 minutes
trying to
into
push it to,
the National Issue Forums
Yeah,
guide.
and it's not letting me push it.
Does
Okay.
everyone have the link for that?
What's the
It's okay. I think Vinny
What's
is
the time
moving
Where
it
do I
on
find that link?
because we don't have time.
Okay.
But
So you can
maybe
find it in the
afterwards people
Discord,
can
or I
watch it
can
if
give
they
it
want.
to you now.
Yeah.
Would I be able to?
Give me
I can also
one
just
second,
give
I
it
can
to you now
figure it out.
verbally.
Vinya,
It's a
if you
very
want to,
easy link.
you're talking about the link for the document.
Yes.
So you can
correct.
put that in the actual group chat for the event, and then everybody can see it there
On Discord,
and
yeah.
discuss it. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't we actually put it there?
Is it
It
the
might
link
be
that
there.
Armani sent it in right now?
Yeah, I just
I believe so.
Oh, did Armani? Go to Armani.
Thank you very much.
Talk about a village. We're doing it. Yay.
There we
Okay. Awesome.
And I do have a short link to it as well if you want to save that.
Okay.
Since this guide is going to be a core aspect of the course.
Yeah.
Okay. So, does everyone have that guide open?
Oh, we're opening it right now.
Yep.
The question: the full document or just the placemat, or both?
You're going to need to look at both. The placemat is at the end of the full document as well. The placemat is really, really helpful because you can actually walk through a deliberative session with everyone. But take a look at the book because it's going to give you a better understanding of how a deliberative conversation is typically formatted.
Do we want to
Okay, thank
switch if we're going to be looking at a doc and people are in headset? Do we just want to switch to Discord for the last part of this, or What do you think? Because I can be a little disorienting to switch back and forth.
Is that something everyone wants to do? I was trying to avoid the switchover, but if that would make more sense, we can do that.
I know some people who wear glasses and then are in VR, it can be hard to switch back and forth. So I want to be protective of people's eyes.
Okay.
Are we
I
doing
was
any
trying to
breakout
make sure
groups?
that the
Okay.
yeah, so I wanted to do breakouts where all of you could spend some time studying the format and content of the guide. So that's the next activity. And at the current moment, we really only have about 15 minutes. But I want to make sure that you have time with this document because this is what we're building for VR chat,
Yeah, so my thought is that we can switch to Discord and then there can be some people in the BridgeMakers stage and some people like in the co-working area. And then we could just put it in half that way.
Okay. Does everyone seem okay with that?
Or you could just kind of show us by screen sharing the doc and then people can raise their hands. That might be a simpler way to go, just so everybody can follow you since we have such short amount of time.
I suppose that's fair. I can kind of walk you through the document, but I kind of figured exploring the document would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Than
Did everybody take a body break?
With more lecture.
I don't know if everyone took a body break. So we could just invite people to look it through. Did everyone get a drink of water and take care of themselves?
I have my coffee here.
Have your drink there? Okay.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's up to you.
So it sounds like we're gonna pop into the Discord then. Does that sound right?
Okay. So there's a BridgeMakers stage already open and there's already about 5 people in it. But what you can do is just leave VR chat and go to the Discord. Luck, there should be a link to the Discord on there. So if you're not in already, awesome. Okay, so see everybody on Discord and we'll finish this up and look at this next part. This is so exciting. And then I'll put a link to the street epistemology for everybody to look at if you want to see what a group looks like that we do on Sundays. So you can watch how we do that format. Okay, see you on Discord.
And keep in mind, you'll want to actually run one of those epistemology courses. That is a part of homework. So to figure out which epistemology courses you can attend so that you're not placed in a hot seat before you've actually gotten a chance to attend one of those.
Actually, Vanya, real quick, can you come stand next to our crystal-like sim here? We're going to grab a quick photo. We've just done a whole other street epistemology. And then we'll finish up on the digital realms. Benny was like, no, come over here. Okay, we're going to come over here. We're going to get fancy, people. Sure. Let's do it here. Fancy.
Oh.
This is great because this is a world we actually do.
Mace, I'm going to eat your head now.
Nice. Okay, look, Benny is dancing. Woo! Yay. All right. Wicked problems. Woohoo! All right.
Wicked problems.
We got it. We got a good photo. Okay, see you all on Discord. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Yep. And while you're at Discord, bear in mind that there is a feedback survey on this course that you can take. If I was particularly boring, I would really love to know that.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Let's go back to we're going to go to BridgeMakers stage now. So we'll show you that form too.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
All right, see you there.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share the NIF guide. I'm also going to need to keep my mic in frame. There's really no construction. At least it's not a concrete saw, so that's great, right? I just let me get that set up here. Like that. And it replaced both. What? Why? Odd. Yeah. I'm getting. Am I inviting Kate to speak as well? Yeah, sorry. I think the reason why it's cutting out, Mary, is because of the sound in the back. So the mic isn't sure what it's supposed to cut out and what it's not supposed to. So I think that's the issue that we have. Is it improved at all right now? Yeah, it's too much. Is this going to work better for you? Yeah, I do have the auto removal on as high as it can go because of the construction outside. It was better. Oh, okay, awesome. So I'll just kind of keep it like that. Okay, so can everyone see the NIF issue guides here? And low-key, the feedback survey. Hey, would you mind posting the feedback survey as well? Perfect. All right, so National Issues Forums, there were a few questions that people had. What is that, right? What is National Issues Forum? So deliberative democracy, this thing that I've been teaching, it's been around for a really long time. And for about 20 years, a lot of experts in democracy have been trying to get governments and organizations on board because this is kind of like a new way of letting citizens interact and build law. So a big initiative, a big part of that, started as a nonprofit organization and is now a government institution. For now, we'll see how long that lasts because of current cuts and stuff like that, bureaucracy, things like that. But for the time being, at least, we have a government entity in the United States whose job is to put together these guides on how to have a discussion about a really, really. So there were ones on gun control and high skill visa immigration. There are ones on how we handle misinformation. A variety of bigger topics surrounding political discussion. Sorry, my brain's struggling with the jackhammer. So this particular one is a super easy one about free speech on campuses
And it came about because of discussions about a quote unquote left liberal bias by universities that does have substantiated statements. And it is viewed as a little bit of a problem. So what they ended up doing was putting together essentially a guide that said, here's some facts about the situation. And this harkens back to that discussion that we had before about what are the 3 stages of the discussion that kind of devolves into a flame war. And the first one is, well, you don't have the information. Well, okay, here you go. Here's a guide. But we're not flinging completely different information around, right? Like it's not, well, here's a link that goes against your thing. Well, here's a link that goes against your thing. No, any individual conversation, everyone has all of the information because all of the information is in this small guide, right? So bringing any additional information to the table is not allowed, right? It's in the guide. Let's talk about the guide, right? So it's giving you information, but it's not enough to go through the information, right? Because not everyone is going to collect the same logic from that information, and no one should, right? What people conclude from data and information is just as much a part of the discussion as people's finite opinions, right? So what you do instead of basically saying, here's a walkthrough of the problem, is basically say, hey, there is a problem. There are several opinions across the political spectrum about what we can actually accomplish. And there are different approaches to actually solving the problem. So these approaches are developed by asking people their opinions on a campus and then reporting out through this guide what those approaches might be. So audience A or community A might say, prioritize student safety and well-being. Okay, that makes sense. So don't allow certain people to speak on campus. And then there's uphold the ideals of free speech. But like these are conflicting, right? Like they conflict. So you can now have a better conversation about each one. So you'll see option 1 puts forward, here's the problem according to this population. And here's the questions that came about. And these are very specific questions. How should we respond to racism and hate within campus communities in order to ensure student safety? So it becomes very specific to a specific concern that community. By asking this question and spending like a good 10 minutes, basically sussing it out with everyone, you can have a more rich discussion about community A's problem. And then down here, we have a advantages and trade-offs section. This isn't about right and wrong. It's about advantages and trade-offs, right? So you can see here the advantage of community A's approach is directly out of line with this particular issue. And then you can have those larger discussions. Then there's issue 2, which then brings about the exact same where a second community and their considerations and their questions, and then the advantages and the drawbacks for them. And then it does it again for the third one, before it basically asks you in an individual summary to compare each of those approaches on a placement. Our job is to emulate this structure, emulate this guide, but for VR chat. For instance, the issue with allowing individuals age 16 into spaces by using a birth date rule and what it means for community managers to have to reinforce that rule. That's a really big thing in VR chat, right? So we can create one of these issue guides over the next 6 months, basically talking about what are the 3 main perspectives, where are we going wrong on them, and how can we put together a placemat of approaches that we can field a conversation about. So that's the idea of the guide. I kind of feel like I basically just went from lecture into more lecture, but I hope that's helpful. And I would love for people to just kind of go over it, talk with one another.
and just explore the actual format of the guide and give it a go if you can. We will be making one of these. At the end of the course, we will be making one of these guides, and then we will be inviting all of your communities on VR Chat to an actual deliberative event where the BridgeMakers community will be hosting that event, and you'll be facilitating this exact discussion in these guides at your table. And you'll be certified if conversation through your table successfully makes it through the guide with some good reviews. Good conversation happens, people feel good. All right. So that having been said, 1 minute shy. I feel pretty okay. Like I went way over during lectures, but here we are. I feel like I'm just talking. If you have any questions or you want to contact me or anything, thank you, Genki. Oh my god, that made me feel so much better. It always feels weird being on